Hello, and welcome to Pique My Interest, a podcast dedicated to creativity. My name is Scoob Decker, and I am an artist, and your host. PMI is an exploration in meeting some incredible artists, learning about their craft, and exploring what makes them create. Everyone is familiar with Cirque du Soleil, and if you have been to Las Vegas, you are aware of the most sought-after cirque show in the world. The water-based, acrobat-flying, fire-tossing, mind-blowing back of O will take your breath away. This performance is led by the character Vieux, O's MC, its silent narrator that guides you through this stunning adventure. I had the honor to sit down with the artist Benedikt Negro, a world-class mime that has been playing the part for over 20 years. This episode dives into his upbringing from Germany and how he went from being a young European mime, experimenting this craft and exploring his facial expressions and contorting his body into becoming a professional. And soon, the extremely recognizable character. Benedikt soaked up any ounce of knowledge he could get from his upbringing to build his craft from juggling, magic, acrobats, and even walking on broken glass. He dives into the difference between mime, pantomime, clowning, and how they can work together. He is in constant flow with the audience, discovering and breathing with them. He believes that as long as you do your homework and take care of yourself, you can put your faith into the gods of the theater to work with the stage. This episode was recorded on May 24th in Las Vegas, Nevada. I hope you look up their work and your interest is piqued. I hope you're having a grand day, and please enjoy this week's episode I've titled Vieux. Hello, and welcome to Pique My Interest. I am currently in Las Vegas, Nevada, sitting with a world-class artist, a unique artist, in one of the most wildly successful shows in Las Vegas. And if you've come, you've probably seen him perform. Please pique my interest. Who are you and where are you from?
My name is Benedikt Negro and I am from Germany and I'm residing for over 20 years in Las Vegas.
And please tell us, what is your craft?
I am a mime.
And what is your specialty within your craft?
I want to say my specialty is to perform 10 shows a week for Cirque du Soleil at the Bellagio. That's what I do for a living. And so I would say I am you want to call it a character mime maybe?
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Benedikt plays Vieux in O in Cirque du Soleil in Las Vegas, where he plays your MC, your silent ringleader, your narrator, and he contorts his body and his face, leaping across the stage, conducting a storm, emerging from the water, and later descending from the ceiling. It is beautiful, and I can't believe I'm sitting here interviewing here. Can you just please tell us about your background? Do you have any education in mime?
Yes, I do. First of all, thank you. That's a beautiful, beautiful summarization of my show. Very poetic and true. I am a trained mime. I went to school 3 full years in Berlin, Germany, a school that was called Die Etage. And that was a school that included all kinds of artistic endeavors. It was we had actors in there, we had acrobats in there, we had stage crafters in there, prop masters in there, and then there was one class that was only for mimes and mimes only. So I would basically be taught every day in the craft of mime and pantomime, which is a little bit of a different thing. We might talk about that later if you want to, otherwise we just look it up. And while I was being taught in mime and pantomime, I was also having classes in dance, like ballet or modern dance, in acrobatics. So I was able to do the backflip when I graduated and the handsprings. And I did a fair amount of everything that kind of helps me to develop that artistic endeavor, which is mime and pantomime. All those skills are helpful, obviously, to be a well-rounded artist.
And what about your upbringing wanted you to become a mime? What about mime piqued your interest?
So when I grew up, there were lots of performers in my small town that came through or lived there, and they did all kinds of different skills that I caught very early on. I had my first performance as a magician, then I went to juggling and acrobatics, and I did all kinds, whoever came through and was willing to teach me his or her skills, I would just suck up those skills like a sponge, and obviously as good as a 10-year-old would be able to replicate that. So I was walking on glass, I was spitting fire, I was balancing on a freestanding ladder, I was juggling 5 balls, I did simple acrobatics, magic tricks, I had a rabbit that appeared, all the classic stuff too. And I kept evolving, and I had a lot of props too. So at one point I saw a mime in Prague under the Karls Bridge who was just simply dressed. He didn't have much of a costume, it was just a suit. And he performed simple tricks that I would also perform, like a little red tissue that he would put in his fist and then it would disappear. And he was wildly successful with that. He had a huge crowd. And I figured the one thing that he did and I didn't was he was able to completely trust on the language of body language, right? He was only using body language. He did not use speech. And I did use that speech in my performance. So I figured, wow, sometimes it's not about what you perform, because I also did the handkerchief disappearing in my hands, but I wasn't so successful as he did it. So I'm like, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. And he adds or he uses the artistic, the genre of mime. And that's when I got interested. I started doing mime more and more, and at one point I hit a wall in terms of I felt like I had to change something. I was 20 at this point, so 19 actually. So and I was already professionally performing and earning my living with that. And that's when I hit a wall. And I'm like, no, I have to do something that really is a drastic step for a 19-year-old, which is going to a school, 3-year school that just teaches me how to mime, and I did that.
And for me, I'm a huge storyteller. I'm in theater. I love storytelling. And the idea of portraying a story or evoke a feeling without using any words, it just baffles me. But when we watch you on stage, we know exactly what you're doing, exactly what you're thinking, almost predicting what you might do. So I just want to say thank you for that. And can you please tell us, with that success on stage, do you consider yourself successful? What is success in miming? And what got you succeeding in miming?
So, I would consider myself successful in terms of having a career for over 20 years, and successfully so in the most successful, arguably the biggest show in the world, yes?
Absolutely.
Yeah, this show is 26 years sold out. It's insane.
You also play a clown in the show occasionally.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me what's the difference between clowning and pantomime? Do they complement each other? Do they contradict each other?
Mm-hmm. It's a different... One is the technique. Like you can have the technique of mime and the technique of pantomime very quickly. Pantomime is when you make appear objects that are not there. That's when you panto is Greek for all, and you mime, you mimicry of everything. That's pantomime. And mime is when you become those elements with your body. You can be a clown and use the technique of mime or the technique of pantomime, as you can use the technique of playing a violin. Famous Grog used to play a violin, right? So you are then a clown that uses the technique of whatever is needed to make your audience laugh. Clown is more outcome oriented, and you can be a clown presenting the violin or the tightrope walk or slapstick where you hit other people and walk into a wall, or you can use the technique of mime and pantomime, and then you are a mime clown. And so, since I'm already skilled as a mime and I know how to move my body, I can jump into different characters. I can clearly convey a story. That transformation into a clown, while I was doing the show already 10 years, became easy for me. So what happened was we needed a backup, a understudy for one of the two clowns that are performing on the roof, on that floating roof. And I was the lucky one who was chosen after auditioning. And since then, whenever, how rotations work on a regular basis, I'll just do it. And I'm having a lot of fun doing that.
I'm sure it's refreshing and very different for you to go out there and be a clown rather than a mime. But it's really interesting how both are centered around a connection with the audience. Can you tell us a little bit, I don't need you to tell us the history of Cirque du Soleil, but can you tell us a little bit of the history of Vieux? You said, it's been around for over 20 years. You've been doing it for over 20 years. How did it start? Who started it? And what's it like to take over that character?
Mm-hmm. So the character Vieux was created by Eugene Brem, who came from Germany. He had a career in Germany, and then he came to Cirque du Soleil in Las Vegas. He was the inspiration for the character Le Vieux, which is French for the old man, because he had this hunch, and he was performing this hunch, and he had this very creepy attitude about him. So the character became him, and he became the character, and the character from therefore was called Eugene, because his name was Eugene. So that was the character, then Eugene. And he did it for 4 years, and then he decided to move on to a different show. He did Love after that, another Cirque du Soleil production, and he originated the character Father McKinsey for Love. So I took over his role, and pretty much like I want to say you would expect as you're in the musical field, right? It's pretty much the same thing. It's like learn the lines, right? Learn. For me, it was not the lines, but learn where are you when on stage and what is it that you convey. And that's what I started out with. I just looked at what he was doing for a couple of weeks, and I jumped in and I did the best of my knowledge. I was just a young 20-year-old coming straight from school, so it was quite a challenge. But
were you a little overwhelmed being thrown into this?
Absolutely. I never performed in front of 2,000 people. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I was like basically doing small shows. I did the Carnival, which is the German. Those are the big festivities, like the Brazilian Carnival. We've got something like that in Germany, and those are big halls. But that's a different audience. It's mostly partying people. And yeah, I would have a tent of 5,000 to 10,000 people, huge tents, but they're not all looking at you. They're not seated and, pay attention of what you're doing. Right. It's a different vibe, So coming to have 2,000 people seated and looking at what I'm doing, and there are scenes where I'm alone on stage, so it's me alone being in charge of 2,000 people. Straight from school, that was a lot. That was crazy. It was insane. And a lot of first twos, like the first time that I was performing in a water show that needed me to dive underwater and use scuba diving equipment. First time that I performed with a wig. First time that I performed with contact lenses. I never had contact lenses in my eyes before, like that.
How long did it take to get the makeup down?
That was an hour or two. The first time was makeup, so you cannot touch your face and all this stuff. A lot of it was like insanely different and exciting for me to start that role.
Did you have any swimming background?
Mm-hmm. I loved the water back then. I did scuba diving. You would call it naked diving, right, where you just hold your breath. Yeah. You don't have anything else, just goggles. I did that
so you're
a lot.
Just using your expertise to just make this character even more efficient.
That thing was written for me. Yeah.
So you have thousands of people watching you, but let's break it down a little bit. Let's talk about your creation process. How do you start your creation process? How do you come up with a character?
For me, let's say as a mime, I approach the character from outside in, meaning I don't sit down and think about the history of the character, what is my want, and all that good stuff that actors would do, right? My approach is a little bit more hands-on, where I say, how does the character move? What is the quality of the character's movement. Is it stiff? Is it wavy? Is it do I move like water? Do I move like fire? Right, kind of those things. And then I start there.
Yeah, I had the joy of going to Mime in the Park, led by Benedikt with several other people. And what I noticed that before we even started pantomiming anything, we started with our footwork and how the feet move and how they adapt to the floor and how that can start a character. Do you find that being beneficial, trying to find just the basis of your physicality?
Mm-hmm. So Mime in the Park is when I go out in the park once a week and people just join me, and we're having Mime in the sunshine. Thank you so much for joining me.
It's so much fun.
You did very well as well, and you brought your beautiful wife who was sitting there, and just she was an amazing audience, laughing and
thank you, Lizzie.
and yes, that was joyful. And yes, the first thing, as for every actor, I want to believe, is like you have to be in touch with your body. You have to be, so what you feel comes out into your body, and what your body feels come and informs your imagination, right? So the easiest way for me to start that process is to just walk. And because I don't want the whole group to walk through the park and then we lose each other, right? We walk in place, so we're not getting anywhere, which is a very convenient, practical way of doing this. We walk in place, and then we start there, and then we loosen up our hands, we're using up our arms, and we get into that body. It's basically really good for everything. If you're a sports person, it's probably helpful too, right? You gotta warm up. And then when you're aware of that, you just go with the flow, with your audience, right? With even sometimes I get asked, how can you do it to do the O show 10 times a week? It's always the same show, and you do that for over 20 years now. Does that never get boring, right? But every show is drastically different from my perspective, right? I really feel out the audience, and I'm in the flow with the audience, and I feel what do they want, what kind of character do they want. And even, you know, for outside people it might not be a shocking drastic difference, but especially people that come back and see me more often, they're like, it's crazy, you never do the same thing. You kind of do, but it's never the same thing.
Yeah, in Mime in the Park, you mentioned flow, which is very familiar with me, and it's just a state of mind and open-mindedness and not overthinking and just kind of being able to just live in the moment and being with the character. And that's interesting that you get to have that after doing the show 20 years, and each time it just changes and breathes with you. Back to the park, trying to find that grounding in a character, what inspires you? How do you get your creative juices flowing?
Right now, I've got 3 things in the week that gets me growing and flowing, and that is, I start off Wednesdays with my 12:30 clowns. We are a huge group of clowns, huge because I'm also doing that for 15 years, 10 years, 15 years. And so a lot of people are alumni at this point, right? And there's people that just come for one show or come for training. So, but it is every Wednesday we have a 1-hour clown training. And because I want to get trained, right? I don't want to teach. I invite all kinds of teachers, or we invite all kinds of teachers to come and jam with us, lead the group, right? And those are also people from within the group sometimes, right? We don't have anyone, you lead the group, boom, you're the teacher, right? So it's a jam, a clown jam. And then we have an output, which is a 12:30 clown show, which is after midnight, once a month, pretty much a show after midnight when everyone is done with their stage shows on the strip. 12:30 a.m. is a time where everyone is available and they're, unwinding and, seeing that clown show with noses and everything, right? And it's actually very funny, always surprising, and madness. If you're in Vegas at that time, please come and see the show. The second thing is I have every week ballet lessons, private lessons.
Wow.
So I keep my body in shape. Knock on wood, in those over 20 years I never had a serious injury or anything, so I'm not using or abusing my body in a bad way.
Taking the classes.
Yeah, exactly. It works. Ballet, everyone, no matter what you do ballet. It's the best way to hone your body and be aware of your body, definitely. that's the reason why it's so part of everybody's curriculum. Actors do ballet, right?
Yeah,
Dancers
the
do
number
ballet.
one recommended dance to do in musical theaters.
Yeah.
Start with ballet.
Same with actors, they have ballet. Same with mimes. Ballet was very important. Anyway, and then Mime in the Park, of course, where I'm actually pretty much running that thing, and I'm telling them what to do, and I barely jump on stage and join the madness. I'm just staying outside and telling everyone what to do, and I enjoyed that. I'm learning so much.
So while you're creating a character and working with mime, sometimes you've got to hit a wall. You don't know the next step. You don't know what your body's going to do next. How do you overcome a creative block?
By trusting
yourself.
the gods of the theater. They will always show mercy on you and throw you a bone. Or maybe you just didn't deserve it, and then they won't throw you a bone, but that's not up to you to decide, really. Okay. You always do your homework, you always keep your body in shape, you're always aware of the audience, and you're trying to get in the flow, and then at one point, there's nothing you can do. It's up to the gods of the theater.
Up to the gods of the theater.
To bless you with a bone. And it's not up to you to decide whether you deserve it or not.
And I can attest to that, being on stage. Sometimes you just don't know what the next thing is, and it happens, and there it is, and you go with it, and it's beautiful.
And sometimes you don't even know what it was.
Exactly. Get off stage and you say, what just happened? And people say, that was the most brilliant move you've ever done. Mm-hmm. What was it?
Yeah. I had one for the gods of the theaters. I have one quick story where I was asked to be a bad mime. A good friend of mine, he's like, can you be like a bad mime, like one of those bad mimes, and you come on stage and you do bad mime, and then I say, get off stage, mime, and then we go into a full-out battle, and it will be so funny because we'll chase each other through the theater, and that's when the whole thing starts for us, right? I'm like, no problem. What do you want me to do, bad mime? It's like, well, can you just mime out the lyrics of Jewel? You were meant for me. I can do that. So I come in, they start the song, I mime out everything that Jewel is saying, word by word. The audience is just silent. I'm like, perfectly, it's working. I don't get laughs, They're starting to hate me now, so that's good. Tension in the room. And he doesn't stop me. And it's almost 5-minute song, and he doesn't stop me. I do the whole 5 minutes of the song, and the audience applauds. I take a bow and take off, and I'm approaching him in the backstage. I'm like, what happened to you? The arrangement was, I start the song, you interrupt me. He's like, I couldn't stop it. It was so good. I asked you to be a bad mime, and you gave me the most beautiful mime piece there was. And that's a typical example for the gods of the theater. I wanted to be a bad mime. I had no intention to be funny, entertaining, anything. I just wanted to do that, and I still don't know why it was so magical. You can look it up also online. Then after I taped it and showed it to other stages, I still don't know to this day what it was that I did. What exactly is the funny part? What exactly is the touching part? I just did something, and the gods of the theater, they were like, I should throw your audience a bone here, I throw you and your audience a bone there, but we won't tell you what it is. It will just be fascinating. And you got to trust that sometimes, that you're not in control, that you're not in full control of that performance. It's up to the gods of the theater.
Yeah. And do you have any hobbies, and do they complement or contradict your craft?
My wife and I, we've got 2 sons, and I do stuff with them. I go and golf with them. I go in the park and throw a football back and forth. I do those things. I play with my kids, but I don't have a hobby that like skiing. We've got the mountains here, right? Something like that. I just stay away from all that.
You have your family.
I've got my family, and I've got a lot on my plate for the
and
entertaining.
You got your mime in the park,
and all that stuff.
30 clowns and everything. Would you recommend to go to school or take classes to build on miming?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Are there any specific schools to recommend?
Nope, that's up to you to decide. That's but the one important part of a school is that a school will take you out of your environment, and you just do something that is curriculum. It doesn't feed a purpose directly. It takes you out and just does something with you. You become a mime, a pantomime maybe, but you are not thriving to. You don't know where it will get you, right? So you're just doing what the teacher tells you to do, and that's a very beautiful thing, to be taken out of your environment. You just do for a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever. Some schools are 4 years. You just do what they want from you, and you can just relax and not worry about anything. You don't have that if you only do workshops, right? You go into a workshop and you have an idea, oh, I want to learn this from the teacher, I want to do that, and also the workshop will be over in a week or two or a weekend, and while it's a important thing to do, and I'm also still doing workshops, I'm taking workshops as well, a mime school or a school for whatever you do is absolutely important. Did you go to school for musical?
Musical theater, yeah.
Yeah, how long?
I actually went to school for just straight theater, not musical theater. I didn't quite understand why musicals had music. Why are they singing and dancing? This isn't real.
Yeah.
And then I met a girl, Lizzie, who convinced me to audition for my first musical. And then I started to understand how much music and dance can drive a show and how much that can portray story within it. Yeah.
So you took singing lessons as well?
Yep.
Part of
well, like I said, after just studying the straight theater and learning how to tell a story with just the words and the script, then transitioning a little bit into the more musical side, then I started taking classes. I took a ballet class, I took a tap class, I took all these things to try and hone in these skills. And then through getting the bone from the gods, getting certain gigs and certain jobs, and that's when I really started to feel the professionalism in the theater really settling into my body, is when I started just to do it more and more and more. Yeah. Do you have any advice to get educated and start for newcomers? I know you have crazy athleticism watching you in the show.
Oh, thank you.
You have a lot of musicianship. I noticed you said yesterday that you didn't play the piano while it's driving across the stage, but you have to understand how the music flows, and you need to understand, like I said, you're conducting a storm in the background. You have to understand how this music works. You also have experience in swimming and holding your breath. Do you have any other advice for somebody getting started in mime?
Yeah, those are all pluses, I guess, right? It's good if you know a few things. I was just very lucky to have a good public education system when I grew up in Germany, and part of that is music lessons, right? And that doesn't mean that you are being taught to play one instrument or whatever. You just, in Germany it used to be that you would learn how to read and write, not just language but also music. So we learned how to read and write music. So that gave me basic understanding, and now I'm able to play the concertina, which is a beautiful instrument for clowning. So right now, next month, I will perform with two of my friends, the Schnitzel brothers. And I say two of my friends, meaning one is my brother, stage brother, Roland, and the other one is my sister. So our official title is the Schnitzel brothers without Sister Schnitz, and so she will show up anyway. And for that, the accordion is a very useful instrument. So I play that accordion, and people love it. And so yes, no matter what it is that you can do, you want to bring that on stage as well. If you find enjoyment in that, and I sure do enjoyment in playing the concertina, show it, bring it in.
Using your experiences to build on your craft. How do you handle criticism? I'm sure a lot of people watch O and say, what was that about? How do you take that?
I don't think criticism is something that you approach a lot in the later career, I believe, right? Like in the very beginning, you've got all kinds of teachers and directors, and at one point it's rare to get someone who gives you straight up criticism that is really just to, or at least in my experience, like I'm very happy if I get criticism and I can try something new. But to be honest with you, might sound arrogant, but I just don't get a lot of that. Because no one pays, what is it, $200 for a ticket, and then goes backstage, sees me and says, Benedikt, Thank you for, showing me the backstage. By the way, here are my thoughts. Usually it's just the easiest, like, Benedikt, you were amazing. So I just don't encounter...
Like I said, Benedikt is a world-class performer who is very good at his job, and so I can understand you probably don't.
Well, and it's just the nature of... I mean, how many people do you have coming backstage after Hairspray and say, by the way?
Yeah.
It's just not a thing that you do, right?
Yeah. Are there any misconceptions about your craft?
Yes. The biggest misconception is that mime or pantomime needs to be silent. That's just a misconception. Mime and pantomime is not about speaking. It was purposely taken out when it was created, or when it was, let's say, recreated 100 years ago. It was purposely left alone. It doesn't mean that you are not allowed to use it. For example, we had this piano player. If you play the piano, right, you shouldn't sing. You can sing along, of course, too. But if you're straight up in an orchestra, for example, right, it's not. You cannot just go ahead and sing along. All they want you to do is play the piano. Or your wife, she plays, what is it? The piano, yeah. So when she's sitting in the orchestra, what we want from her is to conduct the orchestra, yes, to do all that computer stuff that now you have to do in a musical too, right? There are a lot of switches. That's important and play. But she may, if it's okay, sing along if she wants to, But it's not like the number one rule for you, being that the music director, is now you must not sing along. It's just a thing that's not important. It's, The importance is that she can play and that she can conduct and that she can do those switches and orchestrate the whole thing. And if she wants to sing along, she can do that, but it's not what this is all about. And that's a misconception. Like, the number one misconception, mimes are always silent and you are not allowed to make, talk. Yeah. Not the case. It's just a technique, and if you can add whatever you want, you can add singing, you can add a musical instrument, you can always add, but it's about the physical art movement. And another misconception is that you, especially in America, that you have to be funny as a mime. That's not the case. As a clown, yeah, be funny. That's your gig. As a mime, you can do whatever. That's just a technique which really builds on your physicality.
I definitely had the stereotype that mimes don't speak, and they have these very classic mime skills that you can see anywhere. I will say that throughout your performance, I did notice that you were doing some of those classic rope pullings and the wall touching behind, and so you're still using those. But another misconception I had was I thought miming was just done at a birthday party. But then we get to go see, like I said, one of the most successful shows on the planet, all led by this mime, who in this case still isn't talking, but is able to control the audience and work with the audience. And so I think that is breathtaking, that you get to have that connection with such a large audience so many times a week.
Yeah, and I choose for O not to talk.
That's your choice.
It's my choice, yeah.
Did Eugene talk?
He mumbled. So you could see him talking, and you could hear him talking in the first row as well, which was an excellent choice. It was a very excellent choice for his character. My character is a little bit different, so I choose not to. But I could, if you would tell me, hey, I'm watching the show, can you just try it for me? It wouldn't be a big deal. I would happily mumble for you and loud enough that the first rows can hear it. And if it really works, I could probably also get a microphone and the whole house hears it. That's not the thing. It's just my choosing not to do it. But I went to perform a mime bit. It was a comedy. It was a open night for stand-up comedians. So everyone was talking, and I figured my mime piece could be standing out by me not talking at all, which would be nice. Everyone is talking, here's Benedikt, and it's silent. But to make it easier for me, I thought I'd go with the flow, and I also talked. I had a 15-minute piece, and I talked through my mime pieces. I told them exactly what I will do, And I talked through, let me go and see this room here. Oh, there's a wall, didn't see that coming. Okay, here, let me go walk along the wall. What's that door? Okay, let's go right into the door. I was talking, and just to meet the flow of that evening, so we don't have that awkward silence too, right? And it worked perfectly, and it wasn't a huge change either, It's like, you can decide to do that. For me, it's not the silent art piece. It's very beautiful if it's done like that, and I've done that in Amagusa Valley. It's called Opera House. There's a stage in the middle of that valley, and the people that live around there, which is surprisingly a lot, about 50 people showed up, and I did a show for them. And what happened was I did a straight up 1 hour mime piece without speaking a word, and it was a very magical experience because you've got the silence of the desert. And I meet that with my silence, and I just tell stories that are whatever. I just tell stories and see where we end up. And, sometimes it was sad, sometimes it was funny. And I was just really focusing on that, honing down on that. I'm in the room with you, and that's all we have. Nothing else. No music, no speech, no tricks. I wasn't juggling or anything.
It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And what's next for the world of your craft, whether that be cirque or miming? Is there any projects coming up in the world of mime that might take the world by storm?
I sure hope so. There's lots of room on the strip, right?
Yeah.
And there are lots of showrooms that are being filled with singers right now.
The world needs more mimes.
Yes. So ideally, I would love to see, and I will not do that because I'm having so much fun in my show, right? I really enjoy partying in a big pool party, basically, with 200 people around me. The stage crew and the artists. I'm enjoying that, but ideally, I would love to have a straight-up mime show, 10 shows a week, with one mime on stage, one spotlight, and that's it. Simple.
Wow.
No costume changes, just one mime show. I mean, Tape Face comes very close to that, right?
It's as an artist that I've really wanted to go watch.
It's an amazing show.
Yeah. So what's next for you personally? I know you probably have no passion to leave at any time. Mm-hmm. It's a great gig. You've been doing it for 20 years. I hope you do it for another 20 years.
Yeah.
But anything else? You got these other classes and workshops that you're working on?
Yeah. On the horizon for me right now, it's just next month I'm focusing on that show. We do 6 shows inside Las Vegas Theater on Schiffbauerdam, and we do that in June, 6 engagements. That's what I'm focusing on, and then we see, maybe we do more of that, or I focus more on the 12:30 midnight show. I don't have big goals right now for me. I'm just living it up
being
with
the
my family.
Man, being Vieux.
Yeah.
The dream. And we can see your work at Cirque du Soleil in Bellagio. We can also find you on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
What's your Instagram?
From the Red Curtain.
From the Red Curtain. And if you know anything about you know why it's called that.
Correct.
And please go see it. I spent a little bit extra money to get as close as I could to Benedikt to watch him. And boy howdy, it was awesome. I found myself missing a lot of the acrobats behind, but he himself was just captivating and super fun to watch. Is there anything else that you'd like to say before we wrap up here?
No, thank you so much for doing that. That was fun. And yeah, I hope to see you again soon.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I will gladly come see any day. I do like to wrap up with one last question. If you could excel in any other craft, what would it be?
I think I would love to become a Formula One race driver. Yeah, that would be fun, no?
Speed,
yes.
Okay. What about the speed?
More about, it's from what I take out, and I don't know much, but from what I get out of the sport is that it's pure communication. So it's not just speed, but it's communication. I guess the driver, you have to communicate what's going on inside your car. You have to work with the communication that comes to you from your team, and it's a very, for me it's just total communication mixed with speed.
That
is
sounds really
intriguing.
similar to the theater too.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
much communication. I mean, you're relying on scuba divers
Yeah.
down there with tanks for you to breathe through and making sure that the animatronics are all working. And
Mhm.
you don't want to be jumping into a pool that there's no cavity to fall into.
Correct. So it's very similar, but it's on a racetrack. So how fun is that?
Awesome. I can't thank you enough for joining me and piquing my interest. And thank you to all my peakers out there. Please let me know if you know of any special or unique artists or art forms you think I should explore. I'm currently in Las Vegas, Nevada, and cannot wait to see where PMI takes me next. Remember, creativity comes from the heart. Push yourself. Be kind to each other. I'm Scoop Decker, and thank you for helping me pique my interest.